video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and we just made history, right? We just made history again because Bitcoin is currently trading at all-time highs against the pound, the GBP, the euro, and most importantly, the USD, okay? So what a wild time to be alive. I can still see some doubters and some bears out there, and frankly, I'm not sure what they're looking at, okay? There's one scenario. Let me get this pen real quick, okay? If price is to trade below this prior all-time high breakout level, right? If this turns out to just be a big wick that quickly reverses and we're back below this line, okay? Then I can say, okay, I can maybe see a case for being a bear here. Okay, but 1, 2, 3 daily closes above this all-time high breakout level, and I can't possibly see any argument for being bearish here. Okay, we are trading into new all-time highs. For me, it seems only reasonable to expect price discovery, a big rip-roaring lockout move. So absolutely wild, wild times. And even though I've been trading cycles as long as I have, even though over 4 weeks in advance, we were looking at the cycles for Bitcoin and saying this thing makes total sense, okay, a November 5th pullback followed by a cycle low and off we go to new all-time highs. Even though this is the case, when I woke up this morning, I was just mind blown by how simulated this reality appears to be sometimes, right? Like over a month ago, the charts implied that the current events, the elections and stuff, were going to be handled the way they've just worked out. And you know that old saying, show me the charts and I'll tell you the news? I can't really think of a better example in my entire career than this. And maybe I just overthink it, right? Maybe my brain is just too wacky and fried from all the stuff. But does this not seem incredibly simulated to you? For the whole month leading up to this cycle low, we were pointing at this and saying things like, ignore everyone else, okay? The Camel Crew was saying things like, ignore the elections, ignore people's opinions, okay? The cycles say we find a low November 5th and off we go to new highs. And therefore, it either implies that the elections are meaningless, or it implies that somehow we already knew the outcome of the election ahead of time, right? Which is kind of weird. So, I mean, I'll leave it up to you to decide what you think. The funny thing about cycles is once we found the cycle low and start to push off, okay, the market will always just append a narrative. If DT wins, then this is going to be termed the Trump pump, right? And if he doesn't win, I'm sure the price action would have looked just like this. It's just instead, the narrative would have been twisted to fit and explain away the price action that we were seeing. Instead, the narrative would be, well, Bitcoin is rallying as some kind of anti-government narrative. Bitcoin is rallying against the system and against this and that. But I just think it's amazing that if you're new to cycles, you kind of look at this stuff and go, wow, that's pretty impressive. Or like, wow, how does it work out like that? But the funny thing is, even after trading them as long as I have, right, I've seen countless, and they still never cease to amaze me how they always just show up right at the perfect time. They always seem to coincide with these major events. And even more mind-blowingly than that, they seem to be able to predict the future, okay, by doing something as simple as counting the number of candles on a daily time frame and putting an arrow here and saying that's when we expect the low to form. We apparently can determine the outcome of the election, right? Which is, I mean, as I'm saying this, I can't really believe I'm saying it, but it is what it is. Anyway, Bitcoin closing all-time highs. I see no reason that this is not going to continue, to be honest. Are some games in chop possible? Okay, could we get some, I don't know, late last-minute chicanery? Maybe, right? But overall, I do expect this thing to blast off to new highs, and I expect it to continue to be even more aggressive than this move here, because I think too many people are underexposed. In fact, I can already see that in my comments. A lot of people are saying things like, I don't have enough, is now a good time to buy? And the reality is, as I've been saying over and over again, Bitcoin loves to do Bitcoin things. And those Bitcoin things, remember, post-election tend to look like this. And this is just the average of all the prior cycles. When we zoom in, I've been showing this all week, but it's really important. Here we are in the black. Okay, there's plenty of space to do this. And as I was saying yesterday, the funny thing about Bitcoin, and the whole reason we say Bitcoin does Bitcoin things on this channel, is because this is so Bitcoin, right? It just, out of nowhere, decides, I'm going to rip, I'm going to lock everyone out, and it does this after convincing everyone that it's never ever going to pump again. That was the top at 73k, and it's never trading above that high again, and even if it breaks out, right, the 5.3 rule says 85k max, and then it has this way of just pumping to massive numbers, and everyone sits here and goes, well, how could we have seen that coming? When in fact, that's exactly what it does every single time. There's no reason to expect it to do a little pump to 85k or whatever the number is. Bitcoin has an awful lot of space ahead of it. And so I really think that the challenge here is going to be staying on this trend. As we start to accelerate to the upside, it is going to throw multiple attempts to try to buck people off. So again, wild times. Something else I've been pointing out all week, but it's really important, is historically speaking, when Bitcoin finds a cycle low into the election and then breaks out, just as it has done here, let me draw a line. Okay, it's just found a cycle low in here somewhere and has now broken out to new highs. Historically speaking, okay, we never traded below that price again. Now that level for Bitcoin, which if history is to repeat, says that we are never, ever, ever going below $66,800 again. Up until the 2022 bear market, the price had never in a bear market breached the level of the prior all-time high from the cycle before. Okay, we'd never seen that before. If we draw a line out, okay, the bear market significantly above the prior high. Same deal here, right? Bear market significantly above the prior high. And for the first time, okay, we came down and we actually breached that prior all-time high level. So there's a first time for everything, right? Never say never. I am not here suggesting that we never, ever, ever trade below $66,800 again. But what I am suggesting is, objectively speaking, if history is to repeat, then that is a major level now. That is a major floor price. And given the amount of base building we did in here, okay, it wouldn't actually surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. We don't really, from a structural perspective, need to ever come back here once we've left, because we've already spent 7 months in this range building a base. And speaking of simulation, okay, I also found this morning, and this blew my mind. I had no idea about this. I didn't know this was true at all. But needless to say, if DT is confirmed, okay, if he is indeed going to be president, and then what we're going to see going forward is him remove a bunch of taxes and implement tariffs again, then all of that sounds good and fine. Except, did you know that we saw this exact same thing back in the Great Depression era, and it caused the bubble pop right before we entered the Great Depression, where this Haley-Smoot tariff, okay, was implemented, which raised US tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. This is what I mean by this whole environment seems very simulated to me. Like, what are the chances this thing just repeats almost 100 years to the tick, right? Like, it just blows my mind. But it'll be something to watch out for because, as Henrik points out here, okay, this did indeed burst the biggest bubble ever. And right now, we've got stocks to GDP levels at all-time highs. We've got 200% market cap to GDP values in the markets. And the funny thing is, they're probably going to go a lot higher before they go lower. Bitcoin is also approaching its 2-week upper Bollinger Band, whilst the bands are the tightest in history. Okay, now think about what this means. The tighter the squeeze in the Bollinger Bands, shown down here and visually here, you can see that squeezing. Okay, the tighter the squeeze, the more explosive the move is expected to be. So if this breakout is for real, what we're going to see soon is one of the most historic expansions the Bitcoin has ever seen. Historic compression precedes historic expansion. So buckle in, okay? Because this thing is going to get pretty wild. I'm pretty sure of that. Notice the trend for the election data. Have the election, break out, and 52 days, 56 days. We've got about 58 days ahead of us. But what do all three of these numbers have in common? This is one full daily cycle, right? One full daily cycle before the next daily cycle low is due. In here, day 60, in here, around day 60, and in here, around day 60. But notice how explosive, okay? This is approximately a 100% move, right? A doubling in one daily cycle. We saw a similar thing in 2016, and think about it like this, okay? A doubling from 70k would put us at about 140k in one daily cycle. So absolutely wild times to be alive. I really don't think many people are going to be ready for this move, as I keep saying, but you know, this is what Bitcoin does. And if you think I'm too bullish, take a look at this. If this is the fear-driven fifth, okay, then things might be about to get incredibly crazy, incredibly vertical. And you can see based on this schematic down the bottom, we may well be emerging from base 4 up to the sell point in that fifth wave in the Elliott system. This would also be my third and final near vertical angle. And note the sentiment out there. Almost nobody is saying, yep, this makes sense. Everyone is going, no way, Camel, no way, no way. But the reality is they're probably saying that because they're underexposed. So with that said, okay, what else is there to say? Yellow squiggle remains undefeated. I made a members video this morning going through all the charts, so I'm not really going to bother repeating myself. We're expecting a daily cycle low here. We have found the cycle low as of yesterday for the stock market, and if we look at the US 500 as a proxy, because that runs all the time, you can see, okay, back above that third angle. So again, makes sense to violate the trend line into the cycle low, and then we can go. And note the VIX, okay? I'm really, really happy with how I've handled the VIX. All in here, I was sort of saying, okay, we need a good low, a good squeeze to the downside whilst the stock market blows off, and then we can get some hedges on, and we had this kind of pop up, and I was going, no, not yet, no, not yet, and now finally, I think we're going to get the undercut. Finally, I think we're going to get my entry for the hedges in the next couple of weeks from lower down. And again, I maintain this is going to be one of the trades of the decade by the time this decade is through. Again, in the level 3 member section, I went through all the crypto-related equities, and they're all looking pretty prime to explode. So happy days there. One thing that is a little bit concerning, okay, is the Dixie. Now, take a look at this. As I've been saying over and over again, we're going to find a daily cycle low. And if this current daily cycle does not left translate and fail, okay, then I am calling a major bottom here, and I am expecting this to play out just from here. So we'll get rid of this, okay? We'll also be scratching off this and this. I'll be calling this the 3-year cycle low. And if the Dixie is going to do this, whilst the stock market is putting in its parabolic blow off top, right? Whilst the stock market is about to recover this, continue to blast off, and then eventually break down, that is how you get the deflationary bear market and crash, okay? This is not going to be sustainable for much longer. And once this eventually does break down, especially if this current yellow squiggle for the Dixie continues to play, then by the time the stock market is breaking down from its third angle and the Dixie is up in this neighborhood, okay, this is how you get that deflation. This is how you get the deflationary crash, because investors will flee risk assets and hide in the short-term safety of the dollar. Notice the timeline here, right around January or February. So there may only be a few months of squeeze left. As ever, I'm going to stay long and strong all the while it keeps printing money for me. The moment that we start to get true technical breakdowns, failed cycles confirming it, then again, we'll get out of the way. But as I keep saying all the time lately, I'm still long, strong and bearish. And I'm happy to be wrong about being bearish. If everything's going to continue to rally, I'll just stay long, right? I'm good at staying on the right side of the trade. But if you think the Dixie, you know, if alarm bells aren't ringing here, then you just don't know what you're looking at, frankly. So a wild time to be alive. Congratulations to all the holders. Congratulations to anyone that stayed steadfast in their conviction and bullishness. Congratulations to anyone that didn't get shaken out. If you're holding altcoins, okay, now would be close to the time. Expect Bitcoin to pop up. And then if I'm wrong about a broad-based alt season, okay, if I'm wrong about that completely, then you should be looking for your altcoins to start to pop off in the not too distant future. If they don't, again, alarm bells should be ringing. If you're a level 3 member, look out for the trade notifications because they'll be coming today or tomorrow, I would have thought. And until next time, cheers, bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel Finance got the markets key. Taking us normies on a bar.